This video contains detailed descriptions of real-life violence, murder, and forensic investigation. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Some content may be disturbing to sensitive audiences. Please proceed with caution. Horrifying serial murders occurred in a small village on the outskirts of Noida, India, between 2005 and 2006, shocking the world due to their sheer brutality and scale. The main suspects were Surinder Koli and his employer Moninder Singh Pandher, who lived in house number D5 in Sector 31, adjacent to where skeletal remains linked to at least 16 victims were found. The Nithari Killings, named after a small village in the city of Noida, India, are a chilling series of serial murders that unfolded between 2005 and 2006. The gruesome events shocked not only the local community but also garnered international attention due to their sheer brutality and scale. Nithari, located on the outskirts of Noida in Uttar Pradesh, is a typical Indian village characterized by narrow lanes and closely packed houses. It was within this unassuming setting that one of the country's most horrifying crimes took place. The victims were primarily children and young women from poor families who went missing under mysterious circumstances. The discovery of skeletal remains in a drain adjacent to house number D5 in Sector 31 catapulted this otherwise quiet village into national headlines. These remains would later be linked to at least 16 victims who had disappeared over an extended period. However, some estimates suggest that the actual number of victims could be much higher, possibly exceeding 30 or even 40. The main suspects were Surinder Koli and his employer Moninder Singh Pandher, residents of D5. Koli served as Pandher's domestic help, however, his role extended far beyond ordinary household chores. According to subsequent investigations and trials, Koli was directly involved in luring victims into the house where they were sexually assaulted and brutally murdered. In some cases, he allegedly indulged in cannibalism, which added an even more horrifying dimension to the crimes. The nightmare unfolded slowly as each piece of evidence revealed more about the depth of human depravity possible within those walls. What made matters worse was the apathy shown by local police towards missing person complaints initially filed by family members of victims, many from marginalized sections with limited access to justice. This negligence allowed the killings to continue unabated for nearly 2 years. Timeline of terror, chronological breakdown of events. The Nithari killings unfolded over a span of 2 years from 2005 to 2006. The timeline begins in the latter half of 2005 when children and young women started disappearing from the Nithari village in Noida, Uttar Pradesh. The victims were primarily poor migrants who had moved to Noida for better economic opportunities. During this period, families of the missing persons lodged numerous complaints with the local police, but these largely fell on deaf ears due to their marginalized status. Some reports suggest that over 40 complaints were filed during this time, but little action was taken. The extent and magnitude of the crime remained unnoticed for months. The gruesome discovery was made only in December 2006 when skeletal remains and other personal belongings were found in a drain adjacent to house number D5 in Sector 31, Noida, the residence of businessman Moninder Singh Pandher. Local residents had complained about a foul smell emanating from the area, which led to the investigation. This discovery triggered a full-fledged investigation into what would become known as the House of Horrors. In January 2007, further investigations led by the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, revealed more horrifying details about the murders. Surinder Koli, Pandher's domestic help, confessed to sexually assaulting, killing, and dismembering bodies of children and young women during this period. His confessions included gruesome details of how he lured victims, killed them, and disposed of their bodies. Throughout 2007, several charge sheets were filed against Koli and Pandher detailing each instance of abduction, rape, murder, and disposal. In September that year, CBI submitted its final report identifying around 19 cases linked to Koli and Pandher. However, the actual number of victims remains a matter of debate, with some estimates suggesting it could be much higher. The first judgment came in February 2009 where both Koli and Pandher were sentenced to death for the rape and murder of Rimpa Huldar, a 14-year-old girl who was one of the first victims to be identified. However, subsequent trials saw fluctuating outcomes with some acquitting Pandher while sentencing Koli. The legal proceedings continued for years, with multiple appeals and retrials. Moninder Singh Pandher and Surinder Koli, the two men at the epicenter of the Nithari killings, had drastically different backgrounds that somehow converged into a horrifying partnership. Moninder Singh Pandher was a wealthy businessman hailing from Punjab. Born into an affluent family, he inherited and expanded several businesses, including transport companies and brick kilns. A highly influential figure in Noida society, Pandher lived in an affluent sector of Noida in a large bungalow named D5. Known for his extravagant lifestyle, he was often seen partying late into the night and had a reputation for being quite the womanizer. Pandher was married with a son, but his family lived separately in Chandigarh. Surinder Koli, on the other hand, was from a starkly different socio-economic background. Born into poverty in a small village in Uttarakhand, Koli moved to Noida seeking better employment opportunities and ended up as a domestic help at Pandher's residence. He was married with children but lived alone in Pandher's house, serving as a cook and caretaker. Koli's background was marked by financial struggles and limited education. Despite their contrasting backgrounds and lifestyles, what tied them together were their dark impulses. It is important to note that while both individuals were involved in this case, their roles were distinctively different. According to confessions and investigative reports, it was Surinder Koli who committed most of the murders and sexual assaults. He would lure children from nearby slums with sweets or chocolates before killing them and dismembering their bodies. Koli's confessions included disturbing details of cannibalism and necrophilia. Moninder Singh Pandher's role is somewhat more ambiguous. Initially charged only with solicitation of illegal acts due to lack of direct evidence linking him to the actual crimes, he was later implicated more deeply as investigations progressed. Some accounts suggest that Pandher was aware of Koli's actions but chose to turn a blind eye, while others implicate him more directly in the crimes. The unlikely duo thus became synonymous with one of India's most gruesome serial killings case which sent shockwaves across the country. Their differing backgrounds highlighted that evil does not discriminate between social classes or economic statuses, it can lurk anywhere, even in the most unexpected of places. The Nithari killings put the role of law enforcement under a harsh spotlight. From the initial investigations to the arrests and trials, their actions had far-reaching implications for this case. The first complaints about missing children from Nithari village began trickling in around 2005. However, it was not until late 2006 that police started to seriously investigate these reports after an overwhelming number of complaints were lodged. The lack of urgency in responding to these early reports has been a point of criticism, raising questions about the attention given to cases involving marginalized communities. Some families reported being turned away or even ridiculed when they tried to file missing person reports. Upon launching their investigation, local authorities faced another hurdle, finding substantial evidence against Moninder Singh Pandher and his domestic help Surinder Koli. Despite numerous eyewitness accounts implicating both men, it took investigators several weeks to gather sufficient forensic evidence linking them directly to the killings. The breakthrough came when skeletal remains were discovered in the drain near Pandher's house. On December 29, 2006, both men were finally arrested on charges of murder, rape, kidnapping and criminal conspiracy. This marked a turning point in the case but also initiated one of India's most complex legal battles. The case was soon transferred to the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, due to its severity and the public outcry over local police's initial handling of the case. During the subsequent trials, there was considerable public outcry over perceived leniency towards Pandher due to his wealth and social status. He was initially acquitted by a lower court in some cases but later sentenced to death by higher courts after appeals by CBI and families of victims. The fluctuating verdicts in Pandher's case became a point of contention and debate. Meanwhile, Koli was consistently found guilty across multiple trials due largely to damning forensic evidence and his confessions during interrogations. His death sentence has been upheld by various courts despite repeated appeals. Koli's confessions, which included gruesome details of the murders and alleged cannibalism, played a crucial role in the trials. The trials highlighted several systemic issues within Indian law enforcement, notably class bias, slow response times in cases involving marginalized groups and complications arising from high-profile defendants. The case also brought attention to the need for better forensic facilities and training for law enforcement officers in handling complex criminal cases. The Nithari Killings sent shockwaves through India, revealing a gruesome reality that the nation was ill-prepared to confront. The impact of this chilling episode extended far beyond the immediate victims and their families, forcing a nationwide introspection on issues of child safety, law enforcement efficacy, societal attitudes towards marginalized communities, and the pervasiveness of crime in urban spaces. One of the most significant impacts was a heightened awareness and concern regarding child safety. The haunting images of missing children printed on milk cartons triggered widespread paranoia among parents across the country. It underscored the urgent need for effective mechanisms to track missing children and implement robust measures to prevent child trafficking and exploitation. In response, several NGOs and government initiatives were launched to address these issues. The case also exposed glaring inefficiencies within law enforcement agencies. Despite numerous missing person reports filed by distraught families, it took several months for authorities to link these disappearances to Koli and Pandher's house in Nithari. This delay highlighted systemic issues within policing structures such as lackadaisical investigative procedures, lack of coordination among different police departments, and an apparent apathy towards cases involving marginalized sections of society. The case led to calls for police reforms and better training for handling sensitive cases. Moreover, the incident brought into sharp focus societal attitudes towards vulnerable populations. Many victims were from impoverished backgrounds or migrant communities who lived on society's fringes with little access to resources or legal recourse. Their plights often went unnoticed until they became part of this chilling narrative, a stark reminder of social inequalities ingrained in Indian society. This realization sparked debates about social justice and the need for better protection of marginalized communities. The Nithari Killings challenged prevailing perceptions about crime in urban spaces. Noida, a thriving IT hub considered relatively safe until then, suddenly found itself under scrutiny as residents grappled with fear and insecurity. The case highlighted the dark underbelly of rapid urbanization and the social disparities that often accompany it. It led to increased demands for better urban planning, community policing, and social integration efforts in rapidly growing cities. The media coverage of the Nithari Killings also came under scrutiny. While it played a crucial role in bringing the case to national attention, some critics argued that the sensationalized reporting added to the trauma of the victims' families and potentially influenced the legal proceedings. This led to discussions about responsible journalism and the ethics of crime reporting. In the legal realm, the Nithari case highlighted the complexities of India's criminal justice system. The prolonged trials, multiple appeals, and at times contradictory verdicts underscored the need for judicial reforms to ensure swifter and more consistent justice. The case also sparked debates about capital punishment, as both Koli and Pandher received death sentences in various trials. If this story moved you or made you think, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.